Skaugen?
Mm-hmm.
Skaugen.
Skaugen, yeah.
Nick Skaugen. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, said it very well.
He's really nervous about pronouncing people's names, but he's mostly done a good job.
Yes, thank you.
Very good job, because
Oh,
some
yeah.
people go Skaugen or something like that, but no, Skaugen, yeah. It's
Okay.
spot on.
All right, let's do it then. Welcome to Mighty Filmmakers Podcast, Raindance Film Festival episodes. My name is Asatuurs.
And I'm Josh.
And today we are talking to screenwriter, producer, Nick Skaugen, who will be dissecting, basically.
Yeah, and getting towards what are your 5 steps for filmmaking? You don't have to say them all now.
Not so fast, not so fast. Just maybe tell us a bit more about yourself.
Okay. What and how I got into filmmaking and stuff like that. I'm an actor first. I did my acting training from 2008 to 2010 at a place called the Actors Temple.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds fancy.
Which was
Was it fancy?
it wasn't fancy, but it was very good. It was a place that they really dug into the depths of you as a person, and you basically discovered how to be properly truthful and not just what you thought was truthful or what you thought the audience thought was truthful, but it was a way of being in imaginary circumstances, but keeping that root of truth. And so that, because it was so difficult, it's what sort of difficult things get me really interested in them. And I was thinking, this is really difficult. I think I want to do it. So so I did that, and I got an acting agent and did various short films and a couple of low budget features and various theatre and stuff like that. But I ultimately realised that I wanted to I thought I could do something that was a bit different, and I suppose often, especially with film, it's very easy for the film to fall down in so many ways, and whether it's the sound, whether it's the visuals. It could be in the post, it could be in the acting, could be in the writing, and after doing sort of lots of things, I was thinking, well, I'd like to try and see if I can do even better, basically, than sort of some of the stuff I'd done before, and giving myself also a role that I feel really challenges me as well, because as an actor, you sort of you obviously audition for lots of stuff, but you only get given maybe some things, and they're not always going to be what you really want to do. But so I wanted to write a film that I was really interested in and that I really wanted to be in. So that's what made me want to start writing. So I wrote over the time probably 6 plays and maybe another 6 or 7 feature film scripts and another, maybe 10 short film scripts. Obviously realised, to produce any of these things, it was going to take money, and I was going to sort of producers seeing if I could get anything made, and it was just getting anyone to read a script I found impossible. So it didn't even matter if I had a good script. It was people wouldn't read it in the first place. Sort of producers that could actually sort of produce anything. So I just thought, okay, well, I better let's try and make a short film, basically. As I was just sort of explaining earlier, that was when I thought, well, I also need, if I'm going to do a short film, because no one's going to produce it for me, I'm going to have to figure out how to do this myself, putting a crew together, hiring the locations, and what have you. And I needed to understand what was going on technically behind the camera. So that's why I then came to Raindance in 2017 to do the cinematography course with Zoran, so I could understand why I was waiting hours as an actor for the whole sort of scenes to be set up. And then when I was there, I presented him with the short film script that I wanted to shoot, called 14:2. It's on Amazon Prime, and he looked at it and said, "Yeah, that seems interesting. Let's do it." So we did that, and that that went very well. And and then that basically led to me wanting to produce a feature film. Clearly, that's a completely different beast, totally different money, much larger crew, just much more organisation. It's much bigger. And so that I started writing that script back in 2018 for Roe, and got through. I think we're on our 24th draft by the time we actually shot. And I don't know if you want me to talk about how I went through the whole funding phase.
Definitely, we'll get there.
Okay.
Definitely. So that's the film you're here at Raindance. Row is the movie
Exactly.
you're presenting. But actually, I think you arrived to the first step already, which I've really liked what you said about following self-made success. Let's put it this way. Because you made these opportunities for yourself. So you were learning. Correct me if I'm wrong, because we're exploring what you do. You were learning, and then you realized, okay, in order to make this work and happen, I will have to learn not only acting, I will have to learn to produce, I will have to write, I will have to do all those things. Would you say that's how you look at your filmmaking? You create these positions for yourself, then you explore it, and then you make it happen?
Yeah, exactly. I sort of feel as an actor, you're like a leaf that just gets sort of blown around everywhere. You don't seem to have any, especially when you're starting out, you don't have any control over anything. And obviously, only a tiny fraction of actors will actually, or all writers will actually ever, get anything made or as an actor get a decent part or what have you. So I think if I hadn't have tried to actually do something myself, I would be kicking myself basically, because you can wait around forever and nothing could happen. So I thought, well, at least let's try and write, let's try and make a film, and if it's terrible, then at least I know that I've tried, and also then I'll know, is it terrible and can I make it better next time, or am I just awful and I should do something completely different? But I felt that I had to do that in order to progress either within this industry or move on and do something else or what have you. So I think taking like your own responsibility a bit for your future, rather than just sort of hoping someone else will give you the opportunity. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, yeah. So how do we form this then? Step number one,
create your own opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that's become a bigger thing for actors, right? Like, we're seeing more and more actors taking on multiple roles and creating roles for themselves and producing their own stuff. It seems to be like, I guess, a real positive change that's kind of happened.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, actors come at it from a different standpoint than a director or a producer. I mean, often directors and producers haven't studied acting, but they love film, but they're just coming at it from a different perspective. And I think sometimes with acting, what helps is that because often you've read so many scripts that you've also acted in, it helps you to actually write scripts because you can sort of tell if something is too wordy or just doesn't feel right, because you're a bit more in touch with sort of how you feel when you're reading something, whereas perhaps it depends on the director or producer, but perhaps they're not quite as in touch as an actor maybe because they're just not used to doing that. So I think that's a helpful thing that actors have. And but yeah, often as an actor, you don't have the confidence to try something new, and I think sometimes there can be a bit of I suppose partly what initially stopped me from producing or writing is that you often felt as an actor that if you're writing yourself apart or if you're producing so that you can be in a film, you're clearly not good enough as an actor then, and this is the only way you're going to get something, and it's completely ridiculous, because bearing in mind that ultimately the acting industry is not like a completely level playing field. It's not like going out and playing football, and if you are the best footballer on the pitch, you'll get invited to play for the second team, then the first team, and then maybe you'll get to play for a regional team. It's not like that in acting. It's so much to do with obviously you have to be a very good actor, but it's also so much luck involved. in getting picked. And starting also at the right time at a young age sort of helped. So I think getting past the fact that that I can make something and put myself in it is okay. It's fine. I shouldn't be feel negative about that. So.
It's great to see kind of your perspective, because you kind of come from acting perspective into this very kind of difficult place of producing. So what would you say was the first step of your producer's process?
First step of the producer's process? Well, I mean, my first step was get basically no other producers wanting to speak to me. So that's the first step. But getting blown out by every other producer and just saying, why are you contacting me? Sort of thing. And then once I realized that I had to do it myself, I suppose the first step was discovering, how am I going to do this on a tiny budget? Because so the budget, I suppose, is the first thing, because like with this film initially, and naively, I thought if I attach someone who is sort of fairly well known to the script, and if it's a good script, then people will want to fund it. But I realised very quickly that actually you need to attach not just someone who's sort of fairly well known, you need to attach an A-lister to do that. So after going through trying to make like sort of a £5 million film, I realised that wasn't possible. So I had to take responsibility myself for the budget and do it at a tiny fraction of that. So it was the first step was really figuring out how, like logistically, I can do that, and that was to be able to do that. I read lots of books about sort of producing as well, which sort of gave me an idea. But I also went and on the way when I was trying to make the £5 million sort of pound version, I was contacting line producers to get quotes basically, in various different countries where they had water tanks. So I would travel to, I went to Malta, I went to Bulgaria, went to Czechoslovakia, Croatia, and I then also just spoke to a lot of people in other places like Belgium and what have you. And it was costing a huge amount of money. And I was asking these line producers, I was like, but there's got to be a way to do this for less. There has to be a way. And they were like, there's not. This is it. You either do it this way or you don't do it. And I was like, but really there's, with all your experience, you must sort of know how, an indie filmmaker could do it. And it was just like, no, this is a complicated film. This is a technically difficult film to shoot on water at sea. It is expensive. You're going to need wind machines, rain machines, fog machines. You're going to need a big studio, sound studio. You're going to need green screen. You're going to need to spend a load of money on visual effects and compositing. You're going to need to spend a load of money on water tanks, and it's just so. So I just basically was like, right, okay, well I've seen all of these budgets. And I've done a short film, so I've got an idea of how this can all piece together, and I decided to put together essentially my own budget that wasn't too far off the original budget, but it was a fraction of what they were doing, and I was just looking at how logistically it could be done. So, for instance, a water tank that was costing €50,000 a day to have, and we needed it for 3 or 4 weeks. We ended up going to the very northern tip of Scotland where there was no marine traffic, and it meant that you didn't have to have in post have to remove all the boats and all the people, which was what was costing a huge amount of money as well, just to put sort of the, if you shot it on green screen, just to put basically the sea and the sky back and the sun. It was, I got a quote from one of the post-production houses. It was like, well, just that's 2 million right there, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's really crazy. So we found a place that had no marine traffic, completely isolated, which had these vast views of the ocean, and we constructed this basically pond. It was a large pond, and a landscaper did it. A local landscaper did it for £8,000. And I was getting other companies to quote for building a similar thing in other companies that were in the film industry who'd done something similar before. and the quotes were always coming in at like 300, 400,000 to do the same thing. So it was a question of thinking out the box and not accepting the essentially what you were told.
That's brilliant. That's also useful as well. So I like this. I like what you said. Don't accept what you were told.
Yeah.
And specifically speaking of finances.
Yeah, but there's so much of that in indie filmmaking, right? Like there's so many rules you're told that you can't break, but they are there to be broken a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And you have to have a sort of at least a sort of an idea of how it can be done. I think that's why it's important to do at least one short film before you even attempt something like that. Because if I'd have tried to do it straight to a feature, it would have been a disaster, because I didn't have an understanding of really like putting teams together like this and what every job actually was, and you need to understand what every job is and to be able to then manage all those people and understand when they have issues, why it's an issue, why you might need extra time and stuff like that. Because if you don't, you're just going to get annoyed and you'll be like, well, sort it out or whatever. It's not gonna work. So doing the short film first is I think is super, super important.
Shall we add this as well to the list? That could be our step number 3, is actually make a short film.
Learn in short.
Learn in short. Learn in short.
What's wearing them and doing them. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I think that's a good one. Would you agree?
Yeah.
That's a big part of your process? And
100%. And it's also how, as a writer, you get to see how your writing works by doing it. I think ultimately, it's you have to throw yourself into the ocean and see if you can swim, and see if as a producer you can produce, as a director you can direct, or you have to do it even though, as most people are, you're super worried about being judged. And that, I think that judgment stops a lot of people from actually doing it, thinking that they can't do it, because they haven't done it before, they can't. But I mean, a lot of the time, I think just because you don't know how to do it, you've got to back yourself that you will figure it out. Even if you don't know initially, you will figure it out, and just trying to be level-headed about it. And
I can say that sometimes it can be, I don't know, even embarrassing, I guess, to go to your crew and your cast and say, okay, look, instead of this beautiful meal in an expensive restaurant, we're having like a sausage roll. So that's sometimes how independent filmmaking feels. So how did you approach that as a producer, to speaking to your cinematographer, for example, and saying, okay, we don't have a £50,000 tank for a day, but we have this little puddle?
Well, so actually, we were fortunate enough, because we did the short together, me, Zoran and Matt, we'd all sort of together, the three of us, and we'd formed a little bond, and we started, from like 2021, we were discussing how we could make this film, and then how to do it on the lowest budget. So they were actually involved. Zoran was involved, the DP, from the get-go, as was Matt, the director, into figuring out how we could do this for as little as possible. So, traveling to different destinations, sort of seeing their water tanks, and also seeing not just the water tanks, but how we could perhaps do it by building a pond just by digging a hole on the beach. We were considering doing that, putting some liner down and doing it like that. And so actually the idea to eventually build a pond or something like it kind of came organically through all of us. So Zoran and Matt were on board kind of from the start. We didn't know actually if it was visually going to work until we started actually filming. So there was always a possibility that in camera it was going to look awful, and that we were going to have to sort of find some sort of miracle, just sort of blur out the background to make it happen. But I actually realised it was really working. It was on the first day of the shoot, because the tank was only ready basically by the first day, so we didn't get to test. And by the way, it was, it's the very northern tip of Scotland. We were told at that time of year there'd be no storms. There was a massive storm, really blinding rain and wind. And we had these easy up tents that were getting sort of blown all over the place. And it was difficult from a practical point of view. But then when Matt and Zoran were behind camera and they'd shot, we had a crane basically on a dolly, and that was we were filming the first scene, which was quite a technically complicated scene. But after the first shot came through, I was looking at Matt and Zoran, and they were obviously looking at the screen, and they were just so excited and they were so happy. I could tell like it was working. They were like, it looks fucking brilliant. You know, this is they obviously Zoran had an idea of how it was going to look, but he wasn't 100% sure because this is a really unusual way of doing things. And so yeah, when it was actually working and looking good, the two of them were just ecstatic. So they were on board from the beginning of the formulation of the plan.
Yeah, that's really nice. Like those moments on set, like because there's so many sort of difficulties and issues that can come up. So those moments you really want to savor them, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I guess what you were talking about as well was like kind of like the importance of finding your people almost. Did you feel like you did that?
With regard to the crew and what have you? Yeah, I mean with Zoran and Matt, found them through doing the short. Zoran through being on the course. With Matt, I basically contacted lots of essentially commercials. A lot of them were commercials directors, and basically looked at their reels. I met up with then a shortlisted version of directors, and eventually selected Matt. So you have to. So through that, I found the core of the team, which I think is super important to have to find that core, and then the rest sort of then. It was then an interview process. The rest of the crew, I basically was using mostly industry websites to contact people, and then would interview them. I'd have Zoom calls and what have you. And over like sort of a 2 or 3 month period, I slowly put together the crew. Some of them came through recommendations, but the majority actually came through websites. So I didn't know them. And normally as a producer, especially producing something that's so technically difficult, you would actually already have like a whole core crew that you could rely on. But I actually only knew Matt and Zoran, so the rest of it was a question of just trying to judge people's CVs and their characters as best I could through Zoom calls and stuff.
Yeah, that's another one. That's step number 4. I think it's all about for the producer. It's important to have that core crew kind of assembled and ready to go. I guess would you say that's important? Yeah,
it's incredibly important to get the right crew, especially when you're working in such a tight schedule in such difficult circumstances with very difficult weather. Ultimately people are going to be stressed, they're going to be under pressure, they're going to be tested. So picking the right crew is important. And some of the crew that we picked, they left. They left after I think it's the second or third day of the second week, and it was a 5-week shoot because they just believed that the film was never going to be finished. We needed twice the budget twice the length of time, and we needed like sort of 4 times the budget to do it. And they said, look, the only way you can finish this film is if you do it, because we had like a small studio that we created, because we'd basically, when we were doing the recce to find the locations, we'd found this disused military base, basically. It was a listening station for submarines during the Cold War. So it was actually already a soundproof, which is incredible. So a soundproof building in the middle of absolutely nowhere, which had electricity and everything else, while also having a piece of land you could build a water tank on with these incredible... I mean, it's like, trying to find that was... we were very, very lucky. And then so in this space, in this building, we were able to then build basically chop the boat in half, and we were able to then slice the cabin into like 3 pieces, and then we could remove a piece of the cabin whenever we needed, like, this is for interior shots. For exterior shots, everything was on this water tank, but for the interior shots, it was done this way. So you could, if you wanted to get an above shot, you could lift the lid off, and the people would be in this cabin. And if you wanted a side shot, you just remove a side panel, like that. So that's sort of. So that anyway. So they were saying that the whole film needs to be shot in this just interior shots, because you can control it, because it's in the studio. Like trying to do this, what we were doing outside was absolutely impossible. And so they left. Basically, the whole assistant director team left, and then we replaced them a few days later. And we were already 3 days behind as well. After only like sort of 7 days of shooting, we're already 3 days behind, because on the first day the storm happened, and that just made it very difficult to work. So we're extra slow. Second day, the actress who played Lexi, Sophie Skelton, she had a bad car accident, and her car rolled down the side of a small hill. So she was then she had to go to hospital, and so we lost. She was, basically for 2 weeks, she basically couldn't be on set, because she'd injured herself quite badly, and we didn't even know if she was. I wasn't even sure if she was going to come back. And that was, imagine all the crew are there, all the money, everything's there. She's one of like 4 lead characters, and basically in the morning of the second day that happens, and so clearly that shoved us even more behind schedule, because half a day to obviously just to sort out the accident that's happened, make sure she gets to hospital and everything else, and then the other half you got to obviously reschedule everything, because now you can't do stuff with her in it. And so we fell further behind the second day, and then the third day the crane broke. So then we, that completely scuppered all the stuff we're going to do. So we were 3 days behind when those guys left, along with the line producer. He left as well.
So, as a producer, obviously that all falls on you.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That did.
Did you have a contingency plan for this?
Basically my contingency plan was that we would, if we really had to, I would have to rewrite the script, and we would have to just chop it down, basically, and find a way of telling the story while still, keeping it on the outdoors, not bringing it all into like a studio or something. So yeah.
So how do you, I guess, like stay calm and level-headed in the situation like that? 'Cause it sounds like you had a lot thrown at you.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, because I was acting in it as well.
Yeah.
And trying to do the acting and the producing whilst two really key groups basically. The line producer and assistant director. It's what keeps everything sort of going. So it was one of those things like I just for me personally in life, I've been in difficult pressurized situations before, and this was the most difficult and pressurized situation, but I sort of felt, well, I've managed in those situations, and I'm going to find a way in this situation. So it was, like I said, already sort of had in my mind, if we have to re-edit the script, we can. Obviously, being the writer along with Matt, we would be able to do that. So and then fortunately, just pretty much the morning that they say when they were gonna leave, then other crew who were really on board with the film, who wanted to stay. They were helping with, giving me contacts for, a new line producer or a new AD team and what have you. And so, especially once I'd sorted out the AD team, I felt, okay, we can get back on track. And actually the AD team that came in, they were absolutely incredible. They not only did we catch up on the 3 days that we fell behind, but we managed to do everything that we wanted to in the film.
What's great to hear is that you didn't give up, and actually this is crazy story when team is walking out through the door, and I'm wondering, like, was it Nick the producer or Nick the screenwriter who decided to continue and who actually pushed further?
Both. I mean, it's more the producing side, I suppose, because you've already, obviously spent a load of money getting there. You've already shot like 7 days worth of footage. So for me, it was like we're going to finish it, and we're gonna. So yeah, I suppose it's more the producer sort of hat on. Yeah, we're going to find a way to finish it, and ultimately, most of the crew also did want to finish it. And I wouldn't have also wanted to say, these are crew who've put aside, 5 weeks of their life. They're counting on the money. So for me to sort of turn around to them and say, well, look, we're 3 days behind. The people who've walked out said there's no way of us finishing it. Sorry, yeah, I think we'd better can this. For me that would have sat really badly with me, because this isn't Christmas isn't far away, and people not that kind of sort of impact on their finances would have been very difficult for both them and myself to stomach. So
how did you discover that kind of financing thing? Finance side of filmmaking, as you didn't have experience and you were kind of looking into, okay, I'm going to produce, but how do I bring in money? How do I do that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I tried to use various investment-orientated websites with mailing lists and stuff like that to contact investors. Often they were sort of property investment mailing lists, but sometimes film investment. That actually didn't bring anything, which I was surprised about. And it must have gone out to probably altogether 40,000 people, and that was with some, not A-list names attached, but, with, some people that were doing some decent stuff, and nothing, basically. And producers, like I said, if I tried to contact them, you either got no response back, or it was, we don't accept unsolicited contact. Or like one or two of them were like, well, let me know when you've got an A-lister and we can have a talk. So, it felt like all the doors were just sort of slammed in your face. So ultimately, I said, well, I can put up a certain amount of money myself. And just by basically starting the process with a certain amount of money, other people would come on board, basically. So, the accountant then basically financed the tax credits. Tax credits 25%. So, he financed that. Obviously, being the accountant, he knew that was coming back. So it was just a question of covering sort of 6 months where, you're waiting for it to be refunded. I got an investor. Basically, that's a friend of mine, to put some money in, which was very useful. And then one of the post-production houses as well did basically, rather than charging the normal rate, they charged a tiny rate, and instead got a percentage of the film on the back end. And then with the other post-production houses that were involved, they basically proposed a very affordable rate, which was not the rate I was getting from other ones. So that they essentially, by them knowing that the project was it was going to happen one way or another, because ultimately we probably had a crew of about sort of 35 people, sometimes 40 on some days. Initially, I started out wanting to just have a crew of 25. So the budget and crew size, it did increase. But I think even if I hadn't had, well, the accountant was actually really important for the tax credit side. But I think even if I hadn't had the other ones come on board, I would have just sort of done it anyway. I'd have just essentially the ball was rolling. The ball was rolling, and it was greenlit, and it was going to be greenlit at a tiny amount of money, and we would have produced whatever we would have produced. And luckily, with the other people that came on board, it then became greenlit at a bigger sum of money, which made us able to do something which had much higher production values in the end, and it also helped with the actors, because essentially so few projects get greenlit that acting agents, they want their actors working. So as long as it's a decent script, they actually do want their actors working. And even though I was a first time producer, and Matt obviously was a first time feature film director, the fact that it was greenlit meant that we were getting actors who had a decent profile behind them, albeit not A-lister, but they were it's not Leonardo DiCaprio, but they're all very proficient and had been, Sophie's part of Outlander, Bella's Humans, and Akshay was like Red, White and Royal Blue, and now like Murderbot and stuff like that. So they're people that had that I think if it wasn't greenlit, I wouldn't have got them, because they would have been like, well, let us know when you've got the money. But of course, we could be waiting forever, sort of thing. So
yeah. So I think there is quite a few steps already in there, and quite a lot of learning from what you said. And I kind of like the point of keep the ball rolling, I guess.
Get the ball rolling. That was I think a lot of what you've said though, like throughout this, comes down to you just weren't willing to give up.
No.
Like you were just going to keep going no matter what. And that's really, really important.
Everyone was telling me not to do it as well. Everyone was telling me not to do it. Like the line producers, as I said, they were saying, just forget about it. It's completely ridiculous what you're trying to do. Don't do it. And sort of other people that I would speak to, they were like, well, unless you get like a big MG from a big distributor, don't bother. And I was like, yeah, but that they don't finance, first, without an A-lister and like, certainly not a first-time producer and director. They're like, yeah, but anyway, you shouldn't do it unless you get that. So it's sort of like, okay, well, that's great. You're not trying to help me by explaining a way to get there. You're just saying I shouldn't do it unless I have an MG from a big distributor. I mean, it's kind of like, I see that they were trying to be helpful, but it kind of, it didn't help, really.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there is that kind of negative sort of attitude?
I don't know. I think, I think partly, obviously, the film industry's changed as well. I think, so a lot of people I spoke to, they've been in the film industry for 20 years, and I think sort of even 10 years ago, as an indie filmmaker, you could get an MG. It was easier. You didn't need a massive A-lister, and you could make it work. And part of the reason for that is obviously the cinemas were far busier. So you could actually get a decent cinema release and make some money. But also one of the key things was DVDs and Blu-rays were still big. And a lot of films that don't make it massive in the box office, as long as it's a decent film, you actually make a huge amount of money from that window, basically. So therefore distributors were more willing to take a chance on more sort of first time producers and what have you. But the landscape had changed, and the people that I would speak to, they'd already made it 20 years ago. So when you've already got a name for yourself, even today it would be difficult for them, but they could still get an MG for a film because they've got a whole body of work behind them. But that kind of advice in today's world, it wasn't particularly, well, that's just what I found. I didn't find it was particularly helpful. They weren't sort of giving me, well, this is actually how you do it, and this is potentially, here's a contact, this guy, whatever. It wasn't that. It was sort of like, don't do it. They were like, don't put your own money into it at all. Everyone, you got to make sure that everyone else finances your film. And I'm like, but realistically, that's all very well saying that, but realistically, if you put yourself in their shoes, and in today's film landscape, with it being dominated by the big streaming platforms, people aren't really going to do that. It's not realistic advice. Ultimately, I would say, get the ball rolling, and you do need clearly some money. You can't say I've got £100 and I'm going to make a feature film. I don't know. Maybe someone could do that. I don't know how on earth you do that. You need to at least have some money that you collect through work or through family or friends that are willing to put something together. But once you've got something that you can. You think I could film this. I don't know exactly how good it's going to be, and I really would like to have a lot more people, but I could still find a way of filming this, and it could at least look okay on this budget. So once you've collected together that budget, then I think you just have to say I'm going for it, and because so few films do get greenlit, like I say, I think people will hopefully come on board, which they did with my film along the way. Once I said, guys, it is happening, rather than saying, well, I'm still waiting for money.
Yeah. And another painful step is distribution. So what is your specific plan for distribution, or did you research it before you begin your stuff, or how does that work?
So we already have a distributor now, which is Kaleidoscope. They're the UK distributor and the worldwide sales agent. Initially I did want to get a distributor on board from the start because I wanted to get an MG, basically. But then once I realised that wasn't possible, for the ones that did respond, that they said, well, just contact us when it's finished, and we'll take a view on it once it's finished. So that's what I did, basically. Made the film and then contacted them once it was ready. I contacted a bunch, obviously. I must have contacted probably around sort of 150 or so sales agents and distributors. I didn't contact the smaller ones because I wanted to try and find a medium or larger one that had a good chance of making it properly internationally sold and distributed. And then, I maybe got sort of 10 of those, or maybe 10 or 15 of those coming back with a proposal, with an MG basically, or what have you. And then finally selected Kaleidoscope because they just overall seemed like the best fit. Being based in the UK, it's a British film with British actors and crew, or what have you. It makes sense to have a British sales agent distributor. They were also keen to put it into the cinema. A lot of the ones that said yes, they were like, yeah, we like it, but we're not going to. It could go into the cinema, but we don't know. Whereas Kaleidoscope were like, no, we're gonna put it in the cinema, and they seem to be the most enthusiastic, shall we say, about the film. And when I spoke to other people about them, they seem to be legit, because I think ultimately there are a lot of. Sadly, it's the business world of film is like swimming with sharks, especially when you're starting out as a filmmaker. There's just it's just shark-infested waters. It's people who don't necessarily have the best intentions for you at all. Frankly, trying to screw you over. There's a lot of people like that, unfortunately. And they know how desperate filmmakers are. They know how desperate they are to get the money together, and the amount of scams essentially that I was proposed was quite mind blowing. So it was a lot of that, and then there's outright scams, and then there's just people who are just trying to screw you over, but in a sort of legitimate way as well, which you notice as well. So trying to pick the right distributor and sales agent, it's and everything else as well is difficult. But you have to just do your research. That's what I would say. Just do as much research as possible. Don't rush into either with investors that are coming on board or your distributors or sales agents. don't be just, because you're a first-time filmmaker, it's, oh my God, it's so fantastic. I've been offered representation. Because I know clearly a lot of films don't get representation is the reality. So, a lot of indie filmmakers, if they get offered it, they're like, they don't even really consider who it is. They're like, oh my God, I've got representation. Well, I would, unless they're literally the only one that is offering representation, I'd really, wait and research, and don't let them pressure you. A lot of the time I was getting pressure like, well, if you don't sign with us in the next week, then you can forget about it, kind of thing. This offer with us is only if you do it with us now. It's like proper like used car salesman sort of chat. And you shouldn't basically cave to that. You need to have time to thoroughly research everyone and wait for other people to respond as well, and not feel pressured to sign with someone. And I think, if there's a sales agent or distributor that offers something, but it's not really, they're not paying you anything, for example, or it's very little, and you just don't like them, you just don't like the feel of them, and no one else has offered you anything, I think you're probably, obviously it's not the case with our film, but I think, I would, if that was the case for me, I would have self-distributed, because there are self-distribution formats, and then where you do your own marketing, and obviously that's mostly going to be transactional video on demand than renting or buying, and it's not ideal, but it's probably better than just accepting a sales agent, even if they're awful to you, just because you feel pressured that you have to have one, or because you have to have a certain distributor. So. Yeah.
Wow, Nick, that was brilliant. A lot of very useful information for independent filmmakers, and I'm glad that you managed to get through your project, that it's on a big screen, and it's there, and I cannot wait to buy it somewhere as well, to be completely honest with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I really hope that next time we see you, you'll have another project on a big screen, and you'll share with us again your process of filmmaking.
Yep, I will do, definitely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Firstly, got to create your own opportunities. No one else is going to do it for you. This is an industry where only a tiny fraction of the actors or directors will have you get the opportunity to do something. So you've got to create your own opportunities, even if you're worried about being judged or being bad. So that's the first thing. Just go for it. Secondly, when you're told that what you're trying to do is impossible, you can't do it on the budget you're trying to do it, just basically, don't give up. Just think about it outside the box, and just find a way, even if initially it's going to be with a much smaller crew than you want, in a slightly different way, but just find a way where you can actually film it. And then if you get more money along the way, then the film can grow to be even bigger than you want. But just, don't accept what you're told, basically, and find your own way to make the film to be made on budget. I'd highly recommend, if you're producing or directing a feature film, to make a short first, because it's just such a big learning curve making a short film, and you understand so much about the roles of every crew member and some of the pitfalls that can come up. So definitely do that. That's actually the third leads into the fourth, which is what I was saying, picking the core crew. Through doing a short film, you can find those key crew members, such as the DP and the director, and know that you work well with them and that they work well with you, and base a team for your feature around that. The fifth is just basically go for it and keep the ball rolling. So even if you are starting with a smaller budget, just at least get a budget where you can produce something, and if people then join along the way, which is what you want, and people often will, then you can make an even bigger film than you were expecting. So just leap into it, and just start the process.